What's up, everybody? We are just 2 days away from the NFL draft. It's absolutely crazy that we are this close to the draft. I have not done a round one mock draft yet so far. So in this video, I'm going to be doing my first and only round one mock draft. Just kind of be talking a little bit about each pick here. This is what I think will happen. So let's go ahead and get started here. These first couple picks, I'm not really going to go into too much detail. Everybody pretty much, obviously knows that Caleb Williams will be the first pick overall selected by the Chicago Bears. And, it's coming to the point now as we get close to the draft, the second pick is becoming more and more obvious. We've heard lots of talks the past couple of days that it's looking more and more likely that the Washington Commanders will select LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels. So Caleb Williams goes number one, Jaden Daniels goes number two. Three is where it gets interesting because the New England Patriots, if they stay at three, I would expect them to take Drake May. But if they don't take Drake May, I think that means they're going to trade back. Maybe a team like Minnesota will end up trading up. But I'm not doing trades in these because they're just way too hard to predict. So with New England staying put at number three, that means I have them taking North Carolina quarterback Drake May here. I think it's kind of a risky pick, honestly. I think if you're New England, I really think you should consider trading back to get more draft capital because New England needs so many different positions. They need help at quarterback. They need help at wide receiver. So why not trade back to maybe around 10 or 15? And if you still really want a quarterback, maybe try to get Bo Nix and you have, more draft capital. So you maybe get a wide receiver in the later rounds, maybe like Xavier Leggett, Malachi Corley, Ricky Pearsall, some of those wide receivers. But since there's no trades in here, I have New England taking Drake May, the quarterback from North Carolina, with the third pick overall. The fourth pick, that belongs to the Arizona Cardinals. And I feel like pretty much everybody knows if the Cardinals stay put at number four, they would take Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's a fantastic pickup. I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. has potential to be like the Larry Fitzgerald for Arizona. The main attraction, the main star player for Arizona for the next 10 to 15 years. I mean, he's going to be amazing. And when you look at Kyler Murray, I really feel like he was kind of underrated a little bit before his injury last season. Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., I feel like have potential to be a pretty good duo in Arizona. Fantastic selection there for the Cardinals. The fifth pick, that belongs to the LA Chargers. They traded Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears. They make up for trading Allen. They get Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver from LSU. I feel it's a fantastic pickup here. I think the Chargers should go maybe Adunze, Neighbors, or maybe if they want to shock some people, maybe even take Brock Bowers. But I feel like you have to get a weapon for Justin Herbert here. So the Chargers take a wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, with the fifth overall pick. Some people might kind of say this as a shocker, but to me, I feel it's a fantastic pickup here for the New York Giants. Number six, they take Washington wide receiver Rome Adunze. I think he's the best wide receiver by far. And, Daniel Jones might not be the answer for New York, but let's say Daniel Jones isn't the answer, and maybe they draft a quarterback next year, whatever it may be. Regardless of who your quarterback is, you need to have a good wide receiver to see if that quarterback is good or not. Getting a Dunze is a great indication, having a good wide receiver. So if Daniel Jones plays with a Dunze, maybe it'll make Jones play better. If not, they get a different quarterback, and they already have a great wide receiver to pair with a potential new quarterback. I think it's a little bit too early to maybe draft a replacement for Daniel Jones. I don't think Jones is good. I do not think he was worth that contract. He recently signed with New York. But getting a Dunze here, I feel like it's a pretty good pickup here for the Giants. As we continue here, number 7, that belongs to the Tennessee Titans. They take Joe Alt, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame. I like this pickup a lot. I've seen many mock drafts have Alt go here to Tennessee. I just think it's a good fit, and realistically, I think this will probably end up happening for the Titans. Number 8 is the Atlanta Falcons. They take Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner. And, when you look at the Falcons, their new head coach is Raheem Morris. He's a defensive-minded guy. And I think, getting Turner can really help this, really improve this defensive line. Atlanta's defense has been kind of inconsistent the past couple of years. I've heard some talks the past day or so with, potentially drafting quarterback at 8 to kind of be, the predecessor to Kirk Cousins. I don't get that really at all. I don't think that makes much sense. But I think getting Dallas Turner here is a really nice way to start off the Raheem Morris era. You have your franchise quarterback for the time being in Kirk Cousins. You get arguably the best edge rusher in the draft, and Dallas Turner here with the 8th overall pick. As we continue here, the Bears had the first pick in the draft, and they also have the 9th pick. And do not be surprised if the Bears trade back. The Bears have the first pick in the 9th pick, but they only have 4 total picks in this year's draft. I think it's very likely the Bears may end up trading back in the draft to get more draft capital, and whoever trades up with the Bears at 9 may want to jump the New York the New York Jets, so they can maybe get Brock Bowers. But with there being no trades on here, I have the Bears getting the Penn State offense tackle Fashanu. It's very interesting. Fashanu actually played high school football with Caleb Williams, so there's already a connection there. Since they already need offensive line, I think it makes sense. He's the best tackle available here. So Fashanu goes to the Bears with the 9th overall selection. And like I mentioned, Brock Bowers with the Jets. I think if Bowers is still available with the Jets, I think it makes a lot of sense here. I'd be pretty surprised if the Jets were to pass on Bowers. So take Brock Bowers, a great selection there with the Jets at the 10th pick overall. As we continue here, the next couple of picks, the 11th pick that belongs to the Minnesota Vikings, they take J.J. McCarthy. I don't get the obsession with J.J. McCarthy. I don't get the hype with him at all. I think he is average at best. He does everything okay. He doesn't do anything great by any means. I think he was just put in a very, very good situation with Michigan where he did not have to really, throw much. He did not have to really rely on him to win. He was more than a game manager than anything with Michigan. I really don't think he's going to succeed in the NFL, but I think if he's there at 11, I would be surprised if Minnesota doesn't pick up McCarthy. But honestly, I don't even know if he goes top 5 because I feel like when you're hearing these trade draft rumors and everything, it seems like the main team that is kind of attracted and interested in McCarthy is the Vikings. And if they don't trade up in the top 5, I could see McCarthy just sliding all the way down to 11, and the Vikings may not even have to trade up and waste draft capital to get McCarthy. So they take J.J. McCarthy, the 11th pick, the 12th pick, Bo Nix, the quarterback of Oregon. The Broncos take Bo Nix here with the 12th pick. They recently traded for Zach Wilson. I really don't think that means much. I think that's more so of an insurance policy. So if they strike out on getting Bo Nix, Penix, maybe a guy like even J.J. McCarthy, they at least have a guy who's capable of starting in Zach Wilson. But I think Bo Nix, I think that's a pretty good pick here. Maybe they want to trade back and still get Bo Nix. That's maybe something to consider if you're Denver. But, you have Stidham, you have Zach Wilson, just not really good quarterback room in Denver. I think getting Nix could really improve the quarterback room in Denver, and I think it's a smart pick by the Broncos. So number 13 here is the Raiders. There's been lots of talks about the Raiders getting a quarterback. Maybe they take an offense tackle like Fuega, the guy from Oregon State. But I have them taking quarterback here. Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback from Washington. This is a guy who, if you take away injuries, I think he's a top 5 pick. But it's just impossible to ignore the injuries that he's had. I've seen some mock drafts, him not even being drafted in the first round. And I could understand that just because with his injury history, it's just so big of a risk to draft him and potentially waste a first-round pick on a guy who very well could get hurt very easily in the NFL. But when you're looking at Aiden O'Connell, the quarterback for the Raiders, he wasn't really bad this past season. There's just been lots of talks about the Raiders have been linked to Michael Penix. This is another scenario where I can maybe see the Raiders don't want to take Penix here. Maybe they could, trade back or with their second-round selection, just trade up and get Penix towards the end of the first round, so they have that still have that first-year option available. So we have quarterbacks going 1, 2, and 3, and we also have quarterbacks going 11, 12, and 13. As we continue here, the New Orleans Saints are the 14th pick. They take Oregon State offensive tackle Talise Fuega. I like this pick a lot here. The Saints could use offensive line help, and Fuega could really play any offensive line position except center. I've seen some people say maybe he should play guard, maybe he should play tackle, but I feel that that's a good thing that people don't really know, what position you should play, tackle or guard, because it shows you're versatile and you can play very multiple positions on the offensive line, which is good for a team that needs offensive line help like the Saints. So I take Fuega there, the offensive tackle from Oregon State. The 15th pick belongs to Indianapolis Colts, and they take Alabama cornerback Terrion Arnold. Arnold was a beast this past year for Alabama, having 5 interceptions and 13 pass breakups. He's arguably the best corner in this year's draft. It's a really nice selection here, I think, by the Indianapolis Colts. 16 belongs to the Seattle Seahawks, and they take Texas defensive tackle Byron Murphy. And when you look at Seattle, their new head coach is Mike Macdonald. He was formerly the defense coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. And, they had a elite defensive tackle in Baltimore with Justin Madubuike. And I feel maybe Murphy can be Macdonald's new Madubuike, a guy who's going to be your cornerstone player on a defensive line. I feel this is a pick that I think could very well end up happening. I've seen Kuiper and some other mock drafts. They both have Kuiper and a couple other people have Murphy going to Seattle here in the first round. So we are halfway done with this mock draft here. And the next pick up is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They take Washington offensive tackle Troy Fuantu. This is interesting because I could see Jacksonville. I think they're taking offensive tackle or corner. Maybe it's Fuantu, the Washington offensive tackle, or maybe they take a guy like Quinyon Mitchell, the corner from Toledo. It's interesting because, they can maybe take offensive tackle or corner, but then you don't know what offensive tackle or corner they may end up taking. But if they don't take one of those two positions, I'd be kind of surprised there for Jacksonville. So next up is Cincinnati, and I don't necessarily agree with this pick. I just think this is what's going to happen. When you look at like local media and stuff like that in their mock drafts, they've been talking a lot about Alabama offensive tackle J.C. Latham. And ultimately, I think that's going to be the pick for Cincinnati. Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with it. If it was up to me and the way how this mock draft has went so far, I would take Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois. I would prefer Newton over Latham. I wouldn't hate Latham, but I would much rather have Newton. You have Latham, who realistically will probably be the eventual right tackle replacement for Trent Brown. Maybe Cincinnati wants to try him out, potentially have competition at left guard with Cordell Wilson. But Latham goes to Cincinnati here with the 18th pick. I know lots of Bengal fans may not be too happy about this, especially Johnny Newton is still on the board. And honestly, I don't blame them. I'm just trying to kind of make this the most realistic mock draft. This is more so what I think will happen. And speaking of Johnny Newton, he actually goes the next pick here. That belongs to the LA Rams. When you look at the Rams, Aaron Donald retiring, you have a chance to get Johnny Newton. You have to do that if you're the LA Rams. I think this is a no-brainer. If you're the Rams, I think you have to be running up to the podium to be selecting Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois here with the 19th pick. So as we continue here, the Steelers have the 20th pick. They take Georgia offensive tackle Amarius Mims. I think the Steelers go offensive tackle here. And I like this because of the fact I don't like Mims at all, and I hate Pittsburgh. So this is a good combination. A player I want him to go to a team I don't like. I don't think he's that great. When you watch his film, he's very, very good. But, it's impossible to ignore the limited amount of playing time that he's had compared to some of these other players like Joe Alt and J.C. Latham. Mims only has 8 career starts, 803 snaps. When you also look at J.C. Latham, has 1,800 career snaps. Joe Alt has 2,200 snaps. So when you look at Mims, I think a good fit for him is Pittsburgh. They've been linked to him a lot recently. And I think it very well could end up happening, be the pick here at 20. As we continue, Miami has the 21st pick overall, and they take Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy. Obviously he broke the 40-yard dash record at the NFL Combine, breaking John Ross's record he broke back in 2017. There's been talks about Miami being very interested in Xavier Worthy. And when you look at the Dolphins, having Xavier Worthy, Waddle, and Tyreek Hill, I just don't know how you would stop that. It's literally insane. That's the fastest team in the NFL. Miami already is the fastest team in the NFL. Then you add the fastest player ever with a 40-yard dash. That would be very, very crazy. So Miami takes Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver from Texas, with the 21st pick overall. The 22nd pick belongs to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they take Oregon center Jackson Powers Johnson. Maybe Philadelphia likes to go Jackson Powers Johnson and play him at center or guard. He has that versatility, or he can play, either interior offensive line position, which is very good for Philadelphia. And, with Kelsey retiring, I think it's very important that they get help at interior offensive line, which they could desperately need. So they take Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon here. 23rd overall, the Minnesota Vikings take LSU wide receiver Brian Thomas Johnson. And when you look at, Brian Thomas Jr., when you look at Brian Thomas, you don't know what's going to happen with Justin Jefferson. Why not get a potential replacement for Jefferson to get Thomas here, the wide receiver from LSU? 24th belongs to the Dallas Cowboys. They get some cornerback help. They get Toledo cornerback Quinyon Mitchell. This is a guy who probably should be gone by now. So Dallas kind of gets the best player available here, getting a great corner here from Toledo. 25, the Green Bay Packers take Latu, the edge rusher from UCLA. This is a guy who, if it wasn't for injuries, I think could be pretty much a lot to be a top 15 pick maybe. But, he has some neck injuries. And when you look at a guy like Leighton Vander Esch, who, was recently retired, he was a former first-round pick from the Cowboys. He had neck injuries pretty much his whole time in the NFL. It's kind of interesting because you don't know how much of a risk it is maybe taking him here, or maybe how much of a risk it is taking him in the top 10, top 15 picks. So he slides all the way to 25. The Green Bay Packers select him here. 26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take edge rusher from Florida State, Jared Verse. I think this is a really nice pickup. The Buccaneers can use some more edge help. They're staying in state, getting Verse, arguably one of the best edge rushers in this year's draft. Really nice pickup here by Tampa Bay. Arizona takes Clemson cornerback Nate Wiggins with a 27th pick overall. This is another guy who should probably already be gone here, but they get best player available and they can use help at cornerback. Great selection here for Arizona. 28, Buffalo takes Texas wide receiver Adonai Mitchell. And, Buffalo is in a very, very bad spot because they pretty much have to take a wide receiver at 28. You just don't know who it's going to be because you don't know what wide receivers are still going to be available. Maybe it's Adonai Mitchell. If Xavier Worthy's still there, that's maybe somebody they would consider. But with them trading Stephon Diggs, they really have no wide receiver help whatsoever. So they've kind of forced their hand and pretty much having to take a wide receiver. And if they don't take a wide receiver, it's going to hurt their wide receiver group even more. And with them trading Diggs, there's even more pressure to get a wide receiver because you were originally getting a wide receiver 2 when you still had Diggs. Now, whoever this wide receiver that they have, they're going to be drafting at 28. He's going to be Diggs' replacement. He's going to be wide receiver 1. So there's so much pressure on Buffalo to try to find the wide receiver of the future for the Bills. So the 29th pick, the Detroit Lions, they take Alabama quarterback Kool-Aid McKinstry. This is a very nice pickup here for Detroit. They could use a little bit more corner help. McKinstry, I think, is the best corner available here. It's a very, 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 very nice pickup here by the Lions. I hate this pickup here because I think it will happen if he drops this far. Cooper DeJean, the safety from Iowa, goes to the Baltimore Ravens at 30. The one thing I hate about the Ravens is that they always take best player available, and it sucks because there's so many times in the draft that there's been a player I want to have fall to the Bengals. I want Cincinnati to draft them, but instead Baltimore ends up taking him. And this is another scenario where, this is why Baltimore is constantly so good year in and year out. They're taking best player available. They might not desperately need safety right now, but DeJean's just too good of a player to pass up here, and Baltimore selects arguably the best player available here in the draft, and Cooper DeJean, the safety from Iowa. So these next two picks here are kind of I'm not going to say out there, but kind of surprising. So 31, there's been a lot to talk about Patrick Paul, the offensive tackle from Houston, possibly going in the first round. He was recently talked about, he thinks he's going to go night 1. And when you look at the 49ers, they can use some offensive line help. Patrick Paul is pretty much the most experienced offensive tackle in this year's draft. How I mentioned earlier, Amaris Mims only has 800 snaps. Latham has 1,800. Joe Alt has 2,200. Patrick Paul has a whopping 2,900 snaps throughout his collegiate career. He is massive. He is 6'7", 315 pounds. And when you look at Patrick Paul with the 49ers, I think it's a very possible situation that we could see maybe Thursday, Paul being drafted by San Francisco. I think it's something that really, I think that might very well end up happening. Maybe look at a guy like Morgan as well, the offensive tackle. But they take Patrick Paul here, the offensive tackle from Houston, with their first round selection. And with the final pick in the first round, I could very, very well see the Kansas City Chiefs trading back, maybe have a pick around 38 to 40 range, getting a little bit more draft capital of a team who wants a player really, really badly, or maybe it's a quarterback who falls like Penix or Nix, and they're still available at 32. I think they would maybe try to call the Kansas City Chiefs and try to get back in the first round so they have that fifth-year option for that quarterback or whoever that player may be. But I like this pickup. I know this might be a reach, but Malachi Corley, the wide receiver from West Kentucky to the Kansas City Chiefs, to me is a match made in heaven for Kansas City. Um, I might be overrating Corley a little bit here. I think he's going up draft boards a lot. I would be shocked if he drops out of the top 45. He's a guy, as we're getting closer to the NFL draft, I feel like his stock is rising and rising pretty much every single day. He's called the Yak King. He has so many yards after the catch. The last 3 years, he's had the most yards per catch, more than anybody in the country. The last 2 years, he has over 2,000 yards, 180 receptions. He is explosive. Anytime he has the ball in his hands, you don't know what's going to happen. And I know some people talk about the lack of competition for Malachi Corley. That's why I don't have him as high on their big board. I think that is so stupid. I think that's an easy, excuse for maybe why you don't like Corley. When you watch him play, he played very, very good against Ohio State this past season. And then look at the 2022 season. He had a monster game against Auburn as well. He reminds me a lot of Deebo Samuel, and I've seen some comparisons with Corley to Deebo Samuel. Just he's so explosive, and you can use him so many different ways in your offense. And so that's why I kind of feel like maybe Kansas City doesn't take Corley with 32, but if they trade back, I could definitely see a scenario where the Chiefs take Malachi Corley, the West Kentucky wide receiver. This would, in my opinion, I wouldn't really like this because the Chiefs are in competition with the Bengals and trying to win the AFC. And I really like Malachi Corley. I would love it if the Bengals got him maybe in the second round. And I don't really want to see a guy that I like a lot go to a team who's competing with Cincinnati in the conference. But this is my round one mock draft. Normally I would have posted a couple at this point, but this is my only mock draft for this year's NFL draft. That about does it for this video. If you're new to the channel or if you've seen my videos before, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time on the Sports Suit Hines Show.